Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about unnecessary libraries. So let's get into it. So the question that I got was, Frederick, have you ever worked on a project that didn't use unnecessary libraries? And that's a bit of a leading question, but I will say that no, I don't think so. But at the same time, I would just want to address something here, and that is that there is no such thing like a non-trivial project that doesn't have unnecessary libraries of some sort. Now, the reason why I claim this is the same reason why I claim that there is no such thing as a system that is bug-free. It does not exist. It is theoretically impossible to have bug-free code. And the problem with how do we define unnecessary, right? How do you define that? If it's just from my perspective, then sure, no, then I've never ever had a situation where that's happened. But my definition of what's unnecessary and what other people's definition might be a little bit different. But what I can tell you is that I've never, which probably is more on the money here, is that I've never been in a project where every person working on that project felt that all of the things that we have are needed. It's the same type of thing, right? There's no such thing as a legacy-free system or a bug-free system, and there is no project where every developer on that project feels that all of this is absolutely strictly necessary when it gets to a little bit of scale. Now, what I think is very funny is that even though people are all aware of this, I've never ever talked to a developer or a fellow coworker who worked on a project where they just said, yeah, everything is pretty awesome. Never. I've never, ever, ever done this. And the thing is, it's like that situation where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Or it's almost a bit schizophrenic, if you ask me, where on the one hand, they can very clearly see that, oh, these things are issues for us. Yet whenever given this like any chance at all to cause that situation, it happens. And I just don't know why. I don't know if maybe I'm a superhuman. Maybe you are a superhuman as well for watching this, but I feel as if I watch decisions being made that I know will come back and bite us in the ass, and then I listen to the people who are not so happy with those decisions further down the line, and I just sit here and I go, well, I told you so. Like that, I just don't get it. It's like when it's happening, they don't get it. Quite a lot of people, they don't really understand what the impact is going to be. Then they do it, live with it for a little while, and then get sick of it and have all these issues, right? And all these issues arise. Sometimes, of course, it's not the same developer who makes these decisions. There are people, it's disproportional. It's quite a lot of people add libraries, especially in front end. And it may not be them specifically who suffer from it, but their coworkers do. And it just keeps on happening. And I just don't know how. Just yesterday I had this really fun situation where, I get to have this little bash with one of my coworkers because I talk to my coworkers at times about some stuff that I feel is a little bit outrageous that I get to hear here on my little comment sections and stuff like that. And one of the most outrageous, it's just hilarious, where I've had a few comments trying to explain to me from people trying to explain to me what a front-end developer should know and what they should be focusing on and what they should do, right? And I was working in this scenario with content security policy headers in order to actually allocate restrictions on our different static assets that we load to the page. Or rather, I was helping my coworker who is a .NET developer who isn't all that familiar with this, and I'm basically just trying to, be a good coworker. And now we were going through all of these different because basically what we had to do was apply the rules and then see what broke. Go figure, right? And we were just walking through the code and we realized that quite a few of our UI dependencies that's been added by various people around the company who do front-end work for some like anywho they broke because they're making illegal injections into the DOM. And the library authors themselves, and this is what I've warned people of, this is exactly the sort of thing that I warn about. Well, the library authors, I mean, they didn't really consider the use case that, all right, we need to have a nonce. And if you don't know what that is, you can go and look that up, but it's basically a way for you to validate on every page. You can set basically a little token that is going to have to match every script that is whitelisted on your page. If the script doesn't have that whitelisting token or that little secret, it's not allowed to actually execute things on the page. And it didn't have support for this. So we sat there and like, luckily enough, the authors, well, not the author, but a contributor to the issue had just made a hash of the content within the library, so we could just basically copy paste that in there, which was pretty, it was a good workaround. But imagine if we didn't have that solution. I was talking to my coworker about this. Imagine if we did not have this solution and this was a critical dependency that we had. What would we have done? How would we have solved this problem? Because compliance requires us to do this. We need to know about this stuff, and this is like one of the things that, well, who's going to be responsible for this? The front-end developer? Well, no, because quite a lot of people on my little comment sections argue that that's all about CSS and JavaScript and HTML, right? You don't need to know about headers and security and anything like that, right? Because that's just the backend people, right? Because it was kind of funny because I was helping the backend person to figure this out. Go figure, right? Anywho, this is an issue, as I told them, and we were talking about this, and then we basically went and looked at the component that had this issue, and lo and behold, it was exactly what I suspected it was. It was a slider. That's what it was. It was a slider component that allowed you to either just slide something to the side, or click a button, a tab, and it just slid over the content for you. That's what it was. And I told them, this is exactly my problem with this, because there is an investment here to be made. I can understand it if somebody wouldn't know how to make this, but there's quite a lot of examples of how to make a slider. I made a slider myself for another demo, which wasn't related to this, on a similar one of the projects that we were working on. It took me a few hours to put that together and make it really nice and make sure that it works exactly as we wanted, right? And I told them that I know for a fact that making this component from scratch is maybe 50 lines of JavaScript and maybe 20-30 lines of CSS. That's what it is. We're talking about an investment that is fairly low. And it just doesn't make sense to me, because now, because we spent I don't know how many hours to try to figure out a workaround for this. And I mean, if we wouldn't have been able to find this nice little, this person who posted the workaround, we would be in a really bad situation. And this was a dependency that was used in a few places. And because this person who made this implementation didn't take the time to consider the impact of what they were doing, the work for them at that moment might have been measured in, I don't know what, half an hour, a few, whatever time. They saved some time, but they extended the work effort for us a lot further down the line. And these unnecessary libraries and all of these, you can think of them as threads. The more threads you have, the more dependencies you have, the harder it is to just work within the environment. So what I want you to take away from this is that you will never ever, as a developer, work on a project where there's not something that is unnecessary, because that's the nature of the work we do. Things evolve and we have new features, we add things and so forth. But I really urge you to think about, to be that developer who can step back and say, do I really need this? Is it really vital that we have this? What will be the impact if I add this sort of dependency? And really ask yourself, can I make this myself in a feasible amount of time? Because I can promise you, if you make it yourself, you are in full control all the time. You own it, you can change it, you can do whatever you want with it. But if you fork it, like shove it off to somebody else, a third-party dependency or something like that, you are taking a risk. And that risk you should just take if it is absolutely critical that you take that risk. And you should only do that with dependencies that truly make or break and like really make the difference. Because otherwise, you're taking a really, it's potentially something that's going to actually cost you further down the line, right? So hopefully you take this with you, because I really wish more people would, because I mean, it's not just me who's tired of having all of these different dependencies. Even the people themselves who add it feel the stress of other people doing the same thing. They might not be so open to admit that they did something wrong with their own dependency, but they're tired of other people doing the same thing that they're doing. So can we please stop this spiral and just really think about dependencies and like all of this stuff before we add them in, so we can avoid these problems? Have a great day.